I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Oscar-nominated composer Volker Bertelmann, aka Hauschka, who composed a score for Showtime's gripping crime thriller, Your Honor. Volker, this score is a really compelling mix of lingering and pensive sounds that evoke feelings of ambivalence and tension. And I think what you've achieved on the score to get to those particular emotions was really quite amazing. So can you talk us through generally what cues and motifs you're employing to elicit that feeling of dread that the show aims to give the audience?
Well, I had the feeling that, when I read the script, I straight away, my impression was that it is not a thriller type of music all the way through, that it has a lot of like more inner tension. And because, people are in a lot of conflicts, and of course, the conflicts leading not to something good. So, in a way, I had to find a tonality that maybe also describes the emotions of the protagonists, and the way they try to get either against the bad side, or they don't want to get into the movements. They just want to stay out of it, but it's very hard to do that. So in a way, to describe that conflict in the beginning, I started with some themes for, let's say for Kofi, for example, the guy that stole the car and who gets arrested. That was maybe my first theme, because I had the feeling that he's a very tragic character. He's in a way, he wants to be a good one in the world, and then because of the circumstances, he gets more and more into a life that in a way leads in the end to a tragic end, and but finding a theme for that, I found out that this is in a way also a theme for the whole story, and for the whole series, because a lot of the protagonists have the same kind of fate in a way. So I called that at the end. I called that the fate theme. That's a little bit like in the Western, right before, there is a duel between two guys, and that there is one person will die. That has in a way the similar, for me, a similar kind of approach. So I try to find themes for that.
Yeah. And then on the flip side is the work that you do, that we, the audience, the untrained ear, maybe don't even notice. And that's actually super important for composing. And I'll give an example. Everybody talks about the first 15 minutes, the tragic and very confronting car crash scene
Hmm.
that kind of sets up the whole drama of the show.
Hmm.
I watched it again today just to make sure a lot of it is without music. It's so
Hmm.
impactful that we don't need the music. But then, as um, Hunter Doohan's character realizes what he's done, your music comes in, and
Hmm.
it's an underscore, but it's so
Hmm.
effective. I don't even know what you were doing to
Hmm.
make us feel like we were twisted in knots. But I'd love for you
Hmm.
to explain, when you're given that kind of scenery, what are you
Hmm.
doing to emphasize it?
Well, I had the feeling that one important sound that was already there, that was, in the scene before the accident is happening, was, the breathing problem of Adam, who's the name of the character.
Yeah.
Um, and he was searching for his inhaler. So in a way, that was the main accident cause in a way. And so I heard always this kind of inhaling sound, and like running out of breath. So my feeling was that I need some sounds in the music that are continuing this kind of breathless sound. And so I used a lot of like toneless cello bowing, and like breathing into a clarinet, into a bass clarinet, just the breath of the sound. And so I used all these sounds and mixed them into, like waves of sound. So when he's creeping on the floor, and you can just, he's fighting against what he has done in a way, plus his anxiety about, which of course is caused by his illness. I think that was for me important to continue over the whole show. So this sound is coming back, and back in certain scenes where I feel a kind of claustrophobic feeling, where suddenly you feel the tension and the air is soaked out of the room. Then I try to find an image for that, and that's the sound from that accident. So, and a lot of the instruments, when they used in a way toneless, they have a lot of sounds of like hair that are bowed over like metal cords, and there
Yeah.
is a lot of textures involved. So I'm recording those very close, that you can hear in a way. It's a little bit like using a microscope
Yeah.
on the on the instrument, and so that is mainly the sound source for that.
It's amazing because we don't even realize what you're doing, but you are affecting us subliminally by giving us that ambience, that dissonance, and then utilizing various sounds to create melody. But it brings me
Mhm.
to this. It's crucial in serving the story to give it depth and gravity, but not to get in the way. Sometimes, as a composer, you're not creating this amazing theme that we're all listening to. You're just helping the story. So, is that balance between foreground and background difficult to accomplish?
Oh, totally, totally, and it's also conflict in, I would say, at least in my person. It's a conflict that always rises because, of course, you dream of the big, theme that is flying over the screen, and you're like, the melody is endless, and there's a lot of arrangements. At the same time, when I hear that, a lot of times I'm just starting to the moment where I'm feeling this is cliche or this is pretty kitschy is very early in the process, when I feel like it's too many notes, or it's too much pathos, So I need in a way to find the balance where I'm just losing the melody and where I'm going more into the sound. And working with sound helps you to not always focus on melodic parts. Let's say, for example, tension can of course be written in with a full orchestra, and but as we all know, it's sometimes overwhelming to hear the full orchestra all the time, and like always, like strings that are rushing, and at some point you feeling a little bit overwhelmed by that. So my in that case, it was my feeling was that I want to find a mixture of melody that is memorable, but at the same time there is also quite a lot of parts in the series where I'm just using sound and warmth. I would say sometimes warmth, sometimes cold as a sound, dissonance, harmony, but in a very minimal way, and that can help for the melodies as well.
Yeah, it can, absolutely. I'm going to focus on some of the melody that I
Mhm.
can remember because to me they were most memorable. There is a track, for example, like Burial, and I'll explain
Mhm.
what my reaction was. So, I, again, I'm not a composer, so I could be wrong,
Mhm.
but to me it sounded like a very baritone string melody,
Mhm.
punctuated by this pensive percussive element in the background. And
Mhm.
then it's a great example of then after all of that tension, you then introduce this piano, which feels more recognizable and less uncomfortable. So we're
Mhm.
already on the edge of our seat, and then we start to ease into that. It's a beautiful track, and it's a
Mhm.
fusion of strings and piano that evoke that emotion. So I'd love you to talk to the fusion of strings and piano, and why are they so evocative to us as human beings?
Well, I mean, the sound of piano, well, both instruments, strings and piano, they have something that is a huge variety of sound, and at the same time, the warmth is hardly to beat. There's hardly another that can make sound so so human in a way. I mean, piano is of course a different instrument, but I think it was so well crafted, and it has it is in a way a string instrument, and at the same time it's a percussion instrument. It has a lot of a lot of usage in a way. So you can play it very soft, you can play it melodic, but you can also play it like a drum a little bit, or you can start pushing with the piano, and it has great bass. It has actually the whole range of the scale, which is fantastic. But with Burial, I have to say, I was thinking because it has a it's based on this melody that is played with all the strings. So it's not only the contrabass or the violin, it's actually the
Oh,
cellos, contrabasses, violins, and violas. They all play unisono this one melody, and it's starting small, and then it gets, the longer the track takes, the more instruments are joining the melody. And I was thinking about actually a funeral procedure. Maybe also I was thinking about a requiem kind of melody that appears when they are standing there. But there was also something about a kind of Italian, like South Italian, graveyard scene for me, because there was this big family and they were a little bit dressed like, let's say, in a mafia film
yeah,
where you have the burials,
yeah.
and to get this Southern European sound in there, I feel always the strings, they don't have to be in tune. They need to be a little bit out of, played like they were played at the funeral with whatever, a handful of string guys there, and that it has a little bit of that handmade feeling. There's a French composer which I was listening to when I was younger. His name is Pascal Comelade, and he made a lot of like interesting music. There's one record that is called Music for Film, or Musique pour Film, and in that on that album he was doing a Rolling Stone cover. I think it was Maybe I Can Get No Satisfaction, but I'm not
Mm.
sure. There was actually a song from the Rolling Stones, and it was played by a very amateurish. His whole records are about using children's instruments, or playing melodies with a whatever, an amateur orchestra. But it has something that is so touching, that is, for me, in that scene I was straight away thinking about this record, and I was thinking I need a little bit of it doesn't have to be too clean, so, and that's why it sounds also a little bit like a southern uh,
Wow.
European melody, for
See,
me
yeah,
personally.
no, I'm so good. See, sometimes it's a risk as the interviewer to say things that may not be intentional. But first of
Hmm.
all, my Sicilian heritage, I immediately keyed into that. I felt like I
Hmm.
was at a funeral, and I felt like
Hmm.
the strings were being played by an old guy with big sausage fingers, and we're just not quite
Yeah,
getting there.
yeah.
And then you've got a whole bunch of tracks similar to Burial where
Hmm.
I felt like some of the notes towards the end of each cue were slightly
Hmm.
off intentionally.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I was worried about asking you that because
Hmm.
hopefully it's intentional. I think it was because it gives us that sense of dread and uncertainty
Hmm.
again, doesn't it?
No, totally, totally. I mean, of course, there can be an accident, and it's easy to say afterwards it wasn't an accident. But I'm working a lot with pitch, and I'm really somebody who thinks that it doesn't. It's great when you have a pristine mixed cue and everything sounds perfect. But as you know, my past, and not only my past, but my records, in a way, are mostly dealing with prepared piano. And when you play with prepared piano, you have to deal with imperfection. And I think personally that imperfection has a charm when it's used, charmful, I would say, when it's not used in a as something that you can't do the other way around. And so in that case, specifically with Your Honor, I had the feeling that the dissonance helps as well the realism in the series. And of course, it's a fine line. You don't have to go into the annoying bit of that. You always have to find the tonality. And maybe there are people already there who actually listen to the score and they think, I don't know, maybe it should have been better or something like that. But I personally love it.
Yeah, same. And it's just enough. And it's just nuanced
Mm,
enough that I noticed it. And I thought, I'm not hearing things. This is intentional and it's making
mhm,
me feel really uncomfortable. And I'm watching
mhm,
the show feeling even more uncomfortable. And so it's
mhm,
a nice
mhm,
marriage of the music and this and the screen. The other thing
mhm,
that I was going to mention before we move on is the piano stuff. You briefly talked about that, but
mhm,
for example, the end credits is traditionally what I would recognize from your work. You're so exceptional at piano melodies, but
mhm.
there is a lot of quieter moments as well. So I just wonder, what's ultimately your favorite instrument to play on and to compose with? Is it the piano?
Well, yes and no, because I mean, the piano is something that I can always sit down and I can start playing, and because I'm mainly an improviser, I would say. Ideas are in a way pouring out of me, but with an improvisation, the problem is that you have to find the density of the idea. You have to melt it down to the part that is important, to the essence in a way. And but it's not only the instrument, it's also the sound that makes you compose. So if I'm, for example, the end credits is a good example because the theme is actually Adam's theme that comes in when, in a couple of scenes in all the show, when Adam is in a kind of conflict and he's like trying to, in a way, this a similar theme like Kofi's theme, but it is more attached to Adam. And when I started to write that, I was starting to write it with a glass harp sound, and that it's actually in these scenes it's always the glass harp that does the melody. And when that was established and we all had a good feeling about it and we all said, yeah, that's great, let's put that there. And I felt the resonance, also with Edward Berger, who is the director of the first three episodes. He was always like, of course that's an interaction. You create an idea and the director sometimes says, I don't know, it doesn't feel right to me. Then I'm not saying, of course it's right. You have to take it. I'm of course talking to him, and we're like, okay, what is your feeling about it? Because in a true collaboration, you try to exchange thoughts, and I have to stretch, which I think is a great training for, maybe being a little humble or at least looking at things from a different perspective. And so when I saw that when I heard that he really liked the theme and he wants it will be a part of the show, I had the feeling that this becomes a bigger theme. And then you start to explore. And then when we talked about the end credits, I had the feeling that it's nice to have a reflective moment at the end of the show because it's so intense that it would be weird to have another like tension piece at the end. It would be nice that you have a kind of homage to whatever the human tragic that was happening and gives you a little bit of a afterthought about I mean, a film like that, even though it's fiction, it gives you as well a feeling of I'm so glad that things like that are maybe not happening to me, or it's a very thin line that suddenly you get drawn into something you don't want to be in, and it gives you an insight of human existence. And I thought that was a nice piece for thinking about that after every episode.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Um, final question is obviously about your most well-known work, I think, to date for film lovers, and that's Lion, your collaboration with Dustin O'Halloran, for which you were
Mhm,
nominated at the Oscars and the BAFTAs. Um,
mhm,
we were saying offline, I listen to that score when I'm feeling down, and I just want to lean into feeling melancholic, and I just
mhm.
wonder, what are your thoughts on how that score was received at the time and how it felt to be nominated at the Oscars?
Oh, I mean, honestly, it was for me a surprise, but at the same time, I felt it already when we were asked about the film, and the mixture was of the collaboration with Garth Davis, wonderful director from Melbourne. He is. It was a really. It was a wonderful work that we could do together, and it was. There was freedom to work on things. My collaboration with Dustin started, and I mean, we knew each other already 10 years before that. I thought that the two of us, I mean, we were nominated for every prize for that score. We won the ACTA in that
Yeah.
year, which was fantastic, which also gave me, I have to say, it was a wonderful experience to go the whole journey with Australian people. That was for me something where I had the feeling we were a part of the whole celebration process, and which is not always the case that you get invited in, like, hey, come on in.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated this process, and of course it gave me some boost for all the other films that were coming, and also I would say my interest was rising through that, and not because I'm a prize hunter. It's much more about getting feeling acknowledged, or feeling some resonance in the outer world, and then from there I was feeling I want to get deeper into the process and get the knowledge of how score work is, how I can get more relaxed, or how I want to, if I can fine tune the process. And let's say, for example, a series like Your Honor,
Mhm.
that's a whole different beast because it's so much more music, and the processes are different. So in a way, I'm in a big learning curve, and Lion was the beginning, which is a gift to get a film like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Someone, of your experience to be saying that you're on a learning curve, kind of gives us all hope that we can all move into different directions in our careers. So, look, on that note, congratulations on a very compelling score for Your Honor, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.